Hey guys, this is Afik, and this is the last episode of our Vue single page application series. In this episode, we'll make sure that we don't have any unnecessary code in our application. We make sure that we don't call to the API to fetch data that we already have in our store. We need to remove all the authentication headers from our Axios calls. And that's about it, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first step will be to visit our general.js file. This is the file we use to set up the Axios interceptor and the one for the router before each. What we want to do here is to create a default header for all the Axios calls. And the way we do that is we call axios.defaults.headers.common. Now the header we want to set up to all our calls will be authorization. And the value for this one will be the same we have in all our API calls. We have an example inside our store. We can check out this header right here, and this is the value. We can go back to the general and paste it in and make sure we're not using context because we have this store right here as a parameter to this function. We can do store.getters.currentUser.token. Okay, this is the first step. We can go now to the store and remove those headers. This is the first one here. Next, we have another one to create a new customer. So this is the one right here. And the last one was inside our customer view. That's the one. Okay, let's make sure it works. You can refresh the page here. Go to new, create a new customer. Awesome, it looks like all the API calls are working without the header because the default header is coming into play once we use Axios. Okay, the next step will be to visit our code and make sure we don't call the API once we already have this data in our store. The first example for that will be inside our customer view file. So when this view component is created, we call the API and try to fetch the user with this ID. What we didn't do is to check if we already have a list of customers inside our store. And this is very simple to do that, and it will save us an unnecessary call to the API. We can fetch the customers array from the store the same way we do for the current user. And now we can just check if we already have customers in this array. So if we do have customers.length, in this case we can loop through all the customers. So we can do this.customers.find. And for each customer, we're going to return it if the customer.id is equal to this given ID inside our VueRouter params. Okay, and I forgot the if statement here. And if we don't have customers, in this case, we can do this API call to fetch the customer. Now, the same thing we can do inside our customers list component. The first thing we do here is call getCustomers action, and if you remember inside our store, the getCustomer action will go to the API and get the list of customers. But we can do the same here. We can check if we already have customers inside our store. So if this.customers.length, in this case we do nothing. Otherwise we can call the API and fetch the customers. Okay, let's make sure that everything works. Refresh the page and go to a customer view. And I want to open the network tab to make sure that we don't do any unnecessary calls to the API. So we look for Ajax calls and we click view, and we're not calling the API. Now, if we refresh the page, we don't have the customers array inside our store, so we should perform the get request to the API, and this is what we do. Okay, let's go back to customers. Now view another customer, and there is no unnecessary API call, and it will save us time and unnecessary resources in our application. There's one more thing I wanted to add is inside our customers new component, we are doing validation here to make sure that the name, email, phone, and website fields are validated, and we can send them back to the API. The problem is that we don't have validation in our backend. So what I want to do now is to add a custom request and make sure we have those same rules in our backend. Okay, and the way we do that is by calling PHP artisan make request, and the request name, let's say create customer request. Okay, let's go back to our code and visit this create customer request, and here I can make the same rules I have in the front end for name, and the name was required, and also minimum of 3 characters. Then we have the email, which was required as well. Well, all of them was required, and this one is also should be a valid email. Next we have phone. Phone is required, minimum of 10 characters, and numeric. Finally, we have the website. This one is required and must be a URL. Now we don't need this authorize method here because all the requests are already authenticated customers, so we don't need to worry about this authorize. Okay, so we can just set it to true and all the requests will be authorized by default. Now we need to go to our customers controller and make sure we import this request. So use app http requests create customer request, and we will use this request inside our new customer request. Okay, let's make sure it works now. You can go back here and customers, new, another new customer. Okay, and we passed the validation in the front end and in the back end, and I think we're good to go. Okay, this is it for this series. Again, this is my way of doing single page application with Laravel and Vue and Vuex and VueRouter, jwt authentication, and all the technologies we used through this series. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section down below. When you watch this video, the code will already be inside my GitHub repo. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.